The blade in the fog tomb. The fog didn't just arrive. It consumed. It consumed the light, the sounds, and the hope of the small village of Willowdale, which huddled at the edge of the old battlefield. It was cold, unnatural, and smelled of damp earth and ancient regret. Every night it crept further up the hills, and whoever it touched felt their warmth extinguish forever. The village elders had scraped together their last silver to hire a hero. What they got was Jorik, a man whose face was a map of scars and whose hair was as gray as the fog itself. But his eyes, weary and marked by countless battles, held a steely glint that revealed he knew how to stare death in the face. "They call her the Fog Witch," rasped the mayor, a trembling man. "An apparition in rusted armor. She's looking for something. Every night she gets closer." Jorik merely nodded, his gaze fixed on the sword at his hip, a simple but deadly blade. "Ghosts are always looking for something," he said, his voice like the creak of leather. "A lost item, revenge, or peace." He spent the day studying the local legends. The story told of the Battle of Willowdale centuries ago, where Prince Alaric fell, defended by his most loyal knight, Seraphina. She fought like a lioness, but when the prince fell, she was overwhelmed. Her body was never found, and her sword, a masterpiece named Twilight, vanished with her. Jorik knew enough. As dusk fell and the first cold finger of fog touched the village, he set out. He didn't walk away from the fog. He walked into it. The world became a realm of shadows and muffled sounds. The cold seeped through his cloak, but Jorik ignored it. He followed the invisible path of greatest sorrow, an instinct he had honed in dozens of cursed ruins. In the heart of the battlefield, where the fog was thickest, he saw her, a towering figure in armor eaten away by time. In her ghostly hand, she clutched a broken piece of steel. A hoarse, pain-filled whisper seeped through the silence. "Where is it?" Jorik backed away, not out of fear, but strategy. He had to find the sword. The legend said Prince Alaric was buried with his shield. A prince would not be buried without his guard's sword if it had been recovered. It had to be with him. He found the tomb, a barely recognizable burial mound, overgrown with thorns and ivy. With his bare hands and the tip of his own sword, he dug. The earth was stone hard, yet he worked with the grim determination of a man who wants to bring his last contract to a good end. Finally, he hit stone, a slab adorned with the prince's crest, a diving falcon. With one last immense effort, he pushed the slab aside. There, resting on the remains of a crumbled shield, it lay. Twilight. The blade was flawless, as if forged only yesterday. A soft silver light pulsed from it, driving back the fog in its immediate vicinity. When Jorik grasped the sword, he felt not only its weight, but also the pain and loyalty trapped within it. At that moment, the fog swirled around him. Seraphina stood before him, her eyes empty sockets blazing with cold fury. The broken piece of steel in her hand was gone. She had sensed that her sword had been found. "Traitor," her ghostly voice hissed. "You seek to steal it." She lunged at him, faster than any living person could. Jorik parried. The sound of steel on ghostly steel screamed through the night, an impossible, deafening clang. Seraphina fought with the frantic desperation of a soul trapped for centuries. She was a master, and even in her decayed state, her technique was flawless. Jorik was no hero from songs and tales. He was a survivor. He blocked, dodged, and used his experience to make her furious attacks hit nothing but air. He wasn't fighting to defeat her, but to get a single chance. "I am not your enemy," he shouted, his voice strained with effort. "I am here to return what is yours." In a gap between two frantic strikes, he did something unexpected. Instead of countering, he dropped his own sword. It clattered to the ground. With both hands he gripped Twilight and held it out to her, hilt first. Seraphina froze mid-motion. Her ghostly blade dissolved into mist. Slowly, hesitantly, she reached out. Her fingers, translucent as smoke, closed around the hilt. The moment she held her sword, the transformation occurred. The rusted armor gleamed like polished silver. The empty eye sockets filled with a soft, sad light. She was no longer a specter of terror, but the proud knight she had once been. She looked at Jorik, and for the first time, there was no hatred in her gaze, only infinite gratitude. "My prince, I failed," she whispered. "No," Jorik said softly. "You protected him to the end. Your watch is over." A smile flickered across her lips. She and her sword began to fade in a gentle, silver light. The cold, suffocating fog on the battlefield receded, not slowly, but as if burned away by an invisible sunrise. Within seconds, the air was clear again. Above them, the stars sparkled. Jorik stood alone in the silence, his own sword back in his hand. He was tired, his bones ached, but there was a warmth in his chest that had nothing to do with payment. He hadn't just saved a village, he had brought hope and peace to a lost soul. When he returned to Willowdale, the villagers no longer saw just the old mercenary. They saw the hero who had pushed back the shadows, and Jorik, the man of steel and shadows, allowed himself a rare, almost imperceptible smile.